Hey everybody, it's Bruce and the dog on the floor, and today we're going to use Elixir, specifically a LiveView application to access a tiny JSON API written in Julia. So it's going to be pretty exciting. This is kind of what we've been building toward for this module for a bit. So I hope you're excited too. Let's get started. Let's talk about what we built so far. So right now we have a simple Julia web service, and that's a simple core, and this functional core, all it does is generate a few random numbers. And in fact, it generates a matrix of them with this call. And all we're doing is just demonstrating how you might wrap a service of something that you've already built. So one of the things that Elixir is poor at, and in fact, a lot of functional languages are poor at because they don't embrace mutability, is crunching large matrices of numbers a little bit at a time. Because of the way that you build matrices, lists of lists, especially mutable ones, can be expensive to build because you have to work on everything head first, and because you have to do a lot of copying in memory. So Julia's kind of reasonable take on mutability really comes into play here. It helps to be mostly functional and mutable where it makes sense. So things like machine learning and data sciences make a whole lot of sense. But one of the things that's harder in Julia, not because it's impossible, because it's really just a little bit immature, is this idea of building a rich web application in a general purpose way. And basically the tools are coming, they're just not here yet. And Genie is one of those tools. And so what we've done here is we've taken a few steps to work with Julia's core services in Genie to take this service and wrap it with a simple web routes file. And what this does is maps a service onto a route. For example, this is what is called, we're serving a static web page that is mapped to the slash route. And this is the one that we wrote, slash random, with also presenting rows and columns. We parse out the rows and columns and then generate this call and then pipe that into a function which generates JSON. And that's our entire service. And so if you look at this, we can actually run this. So we've been running this service. We're running the Julia REPL in this context. I've brought it down. I'm going to bring it back up real quick here. So now our service is running, and now we can do a quick curl to that. And curl is curl. And then we're going to pass that a URL, which is localhost 8000 / and we're random /3/3 for a 3x3 grid. And there you see it. It's I'm sorry, this is a 2x2 grid. I wonder if we made a couple of changes to this. Let's take a quick look. Yeah, so we've made a few changes to that. So it's a 2x2 grid. Let's make that a 3x3 grid. It'll take a few seconds for this to recompile. Yeah, and now we're getting 1, 2, 3 for the first row, 1, 2, 3 for the second row, and 1, 2, 3 for the third. So just with those few lines of code, we've wrapped everything in a web service. And if you have a pretty clean API, then the automatic code reloading is a great way to kind of see what's happening in Julia. So now it's time to shift to the Elixir side of the equation, and we're going to do that next. All right, so let's go to a command line here, and we're in the Julia directory. Don't let that throw you off. This is just the organization for Groxio. So we're still working in the Julia language module, but what we're going to do is create an Elixir LiveView application, and that's going to be with mix phoenix.new. And I'm going to say cross. You see my little Julia sneak in there? So in Elixir, we want these to be lowercase. And this is going to be LiveView, so I'm going to append that with live. And this is going to ask me if I want to add dependencies. And that's for things like, I don't know, my CSS and my JavaScripts and things like that. So we're going to let this kind of load and build. And while this is running, I'm going to take a look at what we're going to use. So there is a library called HTTP Poison, and that's a great way to build a lightweight request. And so what we're going to do is kind of set things up. We need to kind of establish, kind of get things installed. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So installation, this is going to ask us to add this dependency. Let's wait and see what kind of instructions. This is still running. Okay. So yeah, this is finished. So let's go ahead and run these commands real quick. So we need to do a mix ecto.create to create our database. Oh, I need to change into this directory, and I need to say mix ecto.create. Okay, so this is going to create our database, and then I can start the Phoenix server. I'm going to do that with ix, or actually I'm going to edit this first because we need to add this dependency before we do anything else. And so all this does is tax on the dependency. I think that we can go with 1.7 if I'm not mistaken. So let's do that. Now we're going to take a look at our mix.exs, and we're going to drop this dependency in like that. This is 1.7, and I'm going to say mix deps.get. Great, and I'm going to say mix, or how about ix, and then mix Phoenix server. So this is going to start my web server in the context of the application. It has a little bit of build work to do, and while it's doing that, let's kind of look at how our API is going to look. So this is if our Elixir version is below 1.3. It's not, so we don't have to read about that part. But really, all we have to do is http://poison.get and then specify a URL, and then I can translate that to JSON. So I know that there's a JSON dependency that's already included with Phoenix, and that's the one that I'm going to use. So looks like this is up now, and so I'm going to try http://poison.get. And I'm going to use the, so if I press tab for completion, I can see that there is a version with an exclamation point, and that means if you fail, so just return the result. And if you fail, just fire an exception. And this is going to return a result tuple with OK or error based on the result. So I'm going to use this version, and then we're going to use our URL, which is localhost 8000, and then random. And then the rows, let's just do a 3x3 grid just to kind of keep things small. But it's simple enough so that we can see the results, and it's complicated enough so that we know that we're actually working. So this is returning the result correctly. And I think that I can just pipe that to JSON.decode. Yeah, just like that. And I think that there's a bang version of that. I'm going to do a tab, and there is. And I was just making a guess. Let's see, what's that? Oh, so I want to take the body out here. Yeah, and then I want to take that and decode it. Right? Okay, so this is the line of code that our service is going to need. And in the meantime, let's go on over and start. So localhost 4000 and see what's in there. Yeah, so we are running, and you can see that this is the live dashboard. So this is a dashboard that's been built by Jose Valim and Dashbit. And this shows all of the kind of back-end services that and the back-end resources. And it's a great way to monitor what's happening in your Phoenix application. Right now it's just enabled for development, but you could also enable it for production as well. But you could see that LiveView is an excellent way to build a dashboard pretty reliably. So that's why we're using it. So now we need to build our service. And where does that go? So this is the cross application, and this is the lib directory. And there's two directories in here. Web code goes here, and this is basically a list of contexts. And so we're going to have a context in a file, and this is going to be called our random service. And I'm going to say def module, and I'm going to call this cross.random service. And so I'm going to take that, and we're going to build def random, or how about generate? As in generate a random number, so a grid of random numbers. And so this is going to take rows and calls. And so all I need to do is take this service and drop in the code that we've built. And so where is that? That is right here. So this is the code that we need. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to drop it in place. And then I'm going to do the JSON decode. Instead of 3, I'm going to say rows and calls. So now we ought to be able to say recompile. Okay, and now we can say cross dot, and it looks like there's a random service here. And there's only one function, so I was able to auto-complete it. And we could say 2 by 2. Let's see what it gives us. And we get a 2 by 2 grid. So that's excellent. And now all we have to do is make this available in a dashboard. And we're just going to make a very simple LiveView dashboard with a button, and then we're going to be done. And we're going to get to that next. Okay, so we're marching along pretty quickly here. Now we're not going to spend any time at all building this in a beautiful way. What I really want to do is show you how the mechanics will work. Kind of let the Phoenix LiveView course on Groxio speak for Phoenix and LiveView, and let the Julia course speak to Julia, and then kind of show you how to tie the other two pieces together. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to actually build, we're going to take this application and we're going to build a route. And just like in the Phoenix application, there's a route. In the Genie application, there's a router. And so here's the route for the main page that we saw. And we're going to build a LiveView route. And we're going to point this to Randall, which is the name of our service. We're going to pick up rows and columns, and we're going to call this Randall Live. And this is a live action. We're not going to actually use live action, so I think that they're optional. That's going to be fine. So now we need to build a live view. So let's create a new file, and this is, what do we call this? Randall Live? .ex, and we're going to pattern it off of this page live. We're going to use a few pieces of that, so I'm going to go ahead and pick that off. And so we're using cross-web live view. That's the same. This is Randall. This is a handle event, and we're going to have an event called generate. And this is going to be the metadata, which we'll ignore. So the way that LiveView works is that I have essentially a mount, which establishes the data in the first place. I have a render. And in this case, we didn't have a render because essentially there's a template that we used instead. But in the render, and this is going to take assigns Yeah, so what's going to happen is I'm going to render whatever we need to render right here. I'm just going to say that there's a message, and kind of I'll do the obligatory programmer's first program, right? So that's an H1. I'm kind of close that out there. And then the mount, we're going to say assign the socket. Okay, and in the socket, we're going to use our service now, but I don't think I'm going to do that yet. I'm going to say we're going to put I'm just going to return the socket for now. All right, and then so this is eventually going to do something, but here I'm also going to just return the socket. Right, and so we're not doing anything to change the socket yet. We're just going to do nothing but establish that hello world, make sure that that works. So I'm going to go to here. So okay, so no route was, what did we say? That was random. Okay, so we don't have the route there. So what did we call that? In the router, did we actually save what we had? So this was Randall Rose call. So that should work. Let's see what's happening here. Oh yeah, you see the dashboard there? We were pointing to the wrong URL. That was just the problem. Okay, so we've got a hello world, and now let's pick off the arguments. This is just rows and calls, and I can pick those off in the live view. So here's the live view, and the params are going to be rows and then calls. Okay, and then we're going to we're not going to use those quite yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and save here. Okay, so I think that we have those, and now what I want to do is pipe this to a generate reducer, and all a reducer is something that actually, and we want to generate. Let's see if I've got this right. So I need to remember how to parse an integer. So to integer, is that it? Yeah, that's all it is. So I'm going to say to string to integer rows and string to integer calls. And if that fails, I'm just going to go let that go ahead and break. I think I'm okay with that, and I'm going to kind of make this a little bit prettier. Yeah, and now all I need to do is build this reducer, but I'm also going to need to alias. I need to announce that I want to use this random service. And so I want to refer to that by random service rather than cross.random service. It's just a good practice to announce your intention to use something. I could spell everything out if I wanted to, but I don't think I want to. And so now we're going to do a generate. And this is a reducer over socket. And this is going to take rows and calls. You know what? I'm going to say assign rows to that and calls to that. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm putting these two things in the socket, and then I'm just going to pass this to generate. This is going to make things easier. I don't need to recalculate rows and columns all along the way, right? So what I'm saying is take the socket, add rows and columns to it, and then generate. And so now I can say, so table is equal to, actually, I'm just going to say assign socket the table, and then we're going to drop the random dot generate, and then I want to pass socket assigns dot calls, right? So this is just the data that we added into the socket. And so that should give me what I'm after, right? And so, okay, so what I've done is I've dropped some, I've used the service and added it to generate. And then so if this doesn't blow up on me when I reload this, that looks like it's working okay. All I'm going to do is I'm going to let you play with this at home and render that any way that you want to. I'm just going to do a preview, and I'm going to do an inspect of, and then the table that I'm adding in here. Like that, right? Okay, so let's see if we're getting anything here. So yeah, that's, and we could render that as a table or any other way that we wanted to. And maybe we want to do that. I'm kind of changing my mind here, so that's okay. So I'm going to say for row in and table do let's see if that looks any better. So I've got this. Start with the generator, yep. And so this is in, I'm mixing my languages again. So that's what a generator looks like. All right. So row not available, yes. So inspect row, right? Okay. Yeah, and there's my individual rows. And we could do this, we could make this prettier if we wanted to, and I guess we kind of want to now. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to strike this pre. And I'm going to strike, or actually, let's turn these into tables. And let's see, let's say, and then let's say for call in, and actually this is going to have a TTR. These are both going to have a TR, and this one is the close tag, right? And so this is going to be TD, and this is going to be for, this is going to be for, and for call taken from row do, and then we're going to need an N for that, right? And then we need to drop in. So let's grab two of these because we need a TD, and this one's close, and we're going to say, and then we're just going to drop in the call, right? Let's see what that looks like. And is that going to give me a table? Yeah, so that's pretty. And so if I reload the browser, I get a different list of random numbers every time, which is kind of cool. So I think that what I want to do is add a button here to regenerate things, though, and that's going to be pretty easy with LiveView. So all I need to do is add a button down here with a Phoenix click of generate. That's just this event right here, and We're going to call that the generate button. And this is going to generate with whatever's in the socket. All right. And generate already uses whatever's in the socket, right? Okay. So we're going to put that there. We're going to put that there. That's a little prettier. Okay, so let's take a look at that. And so I'm going to generate, generate, generate. And that's a service. So you could see how quickly we used the combination of Julia to do the things that it does well, and Elixir to do the things that it does well, to build kind of a working hybrid application of Frankenstein, if you will. Now, I'm not suggesting that you used multiple languages to solve every problem, but sometimes the advantages of individual languages are so compelling and so clear, like with Phoenix's LiveView and Julia's machine learning and data science frameworks. It really makes a difference to let each language do what it does best. And that's an excellent thing. From Bruce and the dog on the floor, this is Groxio Learning.